Born to Build podcast.
Welcome to Born to Build, conversations with the builders, founders, and pioneers driving change from the ground up. My name is Sam, and today we're chatting with Dave Pena, founder of Highworks Tree Services, a business specializing in precise tree cutting services with a strong focus on meeting each homeowner's unique needs. Dave, welcome to Born to Build.
Hi there, Sam. Thank you so much for having me on this wintry day in Cape Town.
Yeah, pretty rainy, cold. I am dressed in my body warmer jacket. We've got a nice gas heater next to us. But so cool to chat with you today.
Thanks so much.
Let's start with your journey initially. Before Highworks, you worked offshore. Tell us more about that.
Yes. So, I worked in the oil and gas industry offshore of Angola for about 8 years straight, 9 years straight, actually, and a year before that in South African waters. Previously, I had a bit of a break, but I actually started my career in industrial rope access in 1999, actually.
Sure.
That's been my core trade career, working at height industrial rope access since 1999, and I transitioned to trees. I left the offshore game in 2017. So we're sitting on year 8 now of doing tree cutting, tree felling services.
Amazing. So rope work in an offshore environment is no small feat. What were some of the most valuable skills and mindsets you developed during that time?
Yes, so any rope access technician or rope access supervisor like myself, level 3 supervisor, by the time you get to offshore, you're already quite seasoned. Mm-hmm. You're quite a seasoned veteran in the rope game, which I had to do a lot of that onshore. Every rope access guy has to cut his teeth, do many hours on the buildings, in the harbors, in the power stations. You need a good few thousand hours before you even get to set a foot onto an oil platform.
Right. So
already there's a very high level of experience that you have when you're out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So the basics of working at height, doing rope access, there's obviously a huge safety element, health and safety. You need those types of skills. You also need technical skills. When you're on the rope, what are you actually going to do on the ropes? You got to be pretty handy. And like my one instructor said, you've got to be like a MacGyver on the ropes. You've got to be a problem solver. Mm-hmm. Physically, you got to be good. You got to be in good shape. You got to have a head for heights. You've got to have a big respect for heights, and you've got to have your wits about you. And you essentially, you need to also be a team player. You need to have people skills, especially as a supervisor. You can't be totally gung-ho or like a bull in a china shop. You've got to have soft skills as well as the hard skills.
Mm.
So you got to have quite a complement of, safety awareness, working at height, feel for heights, and those people skills that I was telling you about. And also attributes of patience. When the pressure's on, you've got to be able to, keep your feet in the ground and think your way through things. Comes back to problem-solving abilities. Yeah.
And working offshore, you would work a few weeks offshore and then come back home for a while. How did that all work?
Yes. So I was fortunate enough to have a 4 weeks on, 4 weeks off rotation. Mm-hmm. So I'd work for 4 weeks and come home for 4 weeks, which everyone thinks is wonderful, but there are a lot of challenges attached to that.
Sure there are.
But essentially, 4 weeks on, 4 weeks off for 10 years straight.
Sure.
My latest stint. Yeah.
Now, was there a specific moment when you were offshore, when you knew it was time for change? Or time to maybe build something? You mentioned it 8 years ago. You started something new. What was that moment like?
Yes. So, essentially, I'm a family man. Wife, 2 children, and I never really wanted to go offshore in the first place. But when you buy a house and you've got a bond to pay, and there's opportunities knocking on the door, and the oil industry was booming, and all guys like myself were jumping from onshore, going between companies, and there was like a boom in Angola. After 2 months of having to pay the bond, in fact, I preached against going offshore.
Hmm.
But after 2 months of the pressures of having to pay the bond on the house, I had to stick my hand up and say, "Okay, pick me, pick me." And that was back in 2000 and late 2007.
Hmm.
And there were wonderful opportunities, especially in Angola. We earned dollars, and were able to actually earn that without having to pay tax. So the earning potential
yeah.
was quite amazing. But as anybody who knows about the oil industry, you'll know there are big ups and downs. There are cycles, there are huge ups, huge downs. Feast and famine scenarios where the oil price can be high and everyone's happy, and lots of people are buying new houses, new cars, and happy as Larry. Then the oil price dips. So, for example, it was over $100 per barrel for a number of years. Then there was a classic downturn. It went to like under $30 per barrel. And that's when they start laying off, the oil rig, instead of having oil platform, instead of having, a complement of, say, 200 people on board, they'll reduce it right down to 90 people. So they start cutting staff. The company we worked for actually merged with a French company. They pulled us in the one day, and they said at the offices in Pardon Island, and one day you're earning a great amount of money in dollars, more than, say, around the $500 a day mark. They call you into the boardroom and say, "Here's your new contract. Your salary's now been halved." And now you can imagine you've got commitments, you've built, you're living on that sort of that you've got that standard of living, and you're managing your family, and now all of a sudden you're earning half that much. So I remember one night distinctly actually lying in my bunk bed thinking to myself, what on earth am I doing here? I'm not actually making ends meet. This isn't actually worth it. But I don't have the confidence. I don't know what I'm going to do, because this is actually my comfort zone. So that was the biggest thing.
Sure.
Yeah. And then my son, my wife, funny enough, the lady at home, my wife, and this is common for all offshore families. The homemaker at home has a very difficult job. The wife runs the house, manages the children. The offshore guy, he just gets to go away, and then he does his thing. He comes back, and he has a pretty good life. But it's the wife at home who takes the strain, because she's got to carry everything pretty much all the time.
Sure.
Doesn't have a break. So the family was definitely taking strain in terms of that type of management. My daughter was going to high school. My son Daniel had health issues, and it was simply too much, too hard on the family. And I knew I didn't want to be that guy when I got to 60 years old or mid 50s. The kids had left the house, and I looked around and I think I've actually missed opportunities with family, those golden moments and time with the family. I would have actually missed my kids' childhood. And that's when I knew, combined with the financial, it wasn't worth it financially at that particular time. Those things I've just mentioned, I knew I had to make a plan and get out of there. Basically, bust out of Dodge, make another plan. But that's not an easy and quick process.
No, I mean, I'm just trying to imagine, did you just basically quit and not have a plan in place, or how did you transition slowly? How did that all work?
Yeah, so I was very blessed. I attend a wonderful church in Fishhook, Victory Church. Back in the day, it was called Valley Christian Church, became Victory Church. And we have a wonderful man there by the name of Murray Kilgore. And he is a coach, business coach, life coach, and a mentor to many in our community, in our church. And I gave him a call and requested to meet with him. And I actually met with him every month that I was home. I met with him consistently for about a year. And it was incredible. He helped me make this transition. Yes, so I had coaching, and it took about 2 years to actually fully transition from being an expat or offshore oil worker to being a self-employed business person in Cape Town. It literally took that much to actually make that sort of transition.
So tell us a little bit about those early days of Highworks. How did it start? And
Yeah. So part of the process of making that transition, I had to, because I had industrial rope access skills, and climbing trees is similar in terms of, you're also climbing high things. That was one of the big reasons why I chose it, because I tried to take my existing skill set that I was using on oil platforms 4,000 kilometers from home. How can I use those same skills in the suburbs and work close to home and sleep at home every night? That was my dream. That was the whole dream. I remember actually distinctly the pivotal moment. I live in Fishhook, and driving through Newlands by Paradise Motors. And I looked on my odometer, and I was 22 kilometers from Fishhook. And I actually I felt a clear message being said to me, you're going to make your living within this radius from home, and going to be able to sleep at home every single night, which sounds like a very glib thing to say, but for people stuck in the cycle of working offshore without actually having been able to escape from that, people don't know how they're actually going to achieve that. So to be able to be at home, and thankfully, after 8 years, that has happened. With all the stresses and strains, I've been able to be home for my family consistently. So yeah, the early days were very heady. Obviously, learning the ropes, learning how to quote, learning all those things. In a nutshell, incredibly stressful.
yeah, and so how did the rope expertise that you obviously had, did that give you like a unique edge in the tree services specifically as well?
Yes, absolutely. The saving grace, which is I never anticipated it to this extent, but the skill set of a level 3 rope access supervisor entails you're the interface between client, the work team, getting a job done, ensuring safety, ensuring quality, and being the communicator and the go-between, and managing all of those processes.
Right.
So ironically, completely different environment. A 300-meter long floating production storage offload platform, which resembles, like, it's the length of the Titanic, 300 meters long, 90 meters wide, and multi-level steel structures. Noisy up to more than 100, 80, 90, 100 decibels, to walking through plush gardens all over southern suburbs, Cape Town, complete with birds tweeting, completely different environments.
Yeah,
Ironically, the same skill set. So that's such a blessing. So the managing company of Total, or the French call it Total, I worked for a French company over there, being the client, the work team being my South African and Angolan work team, and getting a job done it's just a complete change of environment, but actually the same skill set, which was a huge saving grace for me. Actually, I'm still dealing with the clients, managing the work team, and getting the job done to a high level of quality and safety, doing high risk work. So amazing similarities in that aspect. It was quite easy to transition between the two worlds.
Yeah, amazing. What do you think most people misunderstand about tree cutting and your services?
Gee whiz. Okay. There's so many different. Yeah. So when you hear tree felling, you immediately think all you're doing is cutting down trees, and it's a rough game, and that's all that's going to happen. In actual facts, that's one aspect of it. If I have to break the tree cutting services down, I'll probably do half of the work is actual felling and tree removals. The other half is actually pruning, shaping, and being very careful, especially in the Cape Town southern suburbs, where you actually go, you and the homeowner actually become a team with your work team, and you work incredibly carefully to get the job done. And there's almost like sometimes it can be a little bit artistic, because pruning, there's a lot of shape and a lot of careful and a lot of instinct that needs to happen to get it done. So as much as, yes, there's tree felling, but there's also very careful pruning, and also considering, I think that the key word is you need to apply a very considered approach, considering the what are the homeowner's needs, primary needs and priorities. You're also considering the tree itself and what's good for the tree. And often the people you are serving, they're not 100% clued up in terms of what needs to be done. So you've got to hear what they would like to achieve, and then you kind of walk them through it and you help them make decisions, but as the job progresses as well. So you do a little bit of cutting. So I think what I'm trying to say is it's a perception will be the guys are just going in with chainsaws and being very destructive to trees, but actually that's half of the job only. The rest of it is actually very careful, very considered work. And that's what we kind of, I guess, pride ourselves in. Yeah.
Did you have to learn botany in the process, or did you have some background there? Yeah.
Very much on the job. So you have, when you really get into it, you get to work with a lot of landscapers. And yeah, so the actual trade is like arboriculture. And the fancy name for what I do is an arborist, is being an arborist.
Right.
And very much experiential on the job, needing to be proactive and talk to a lot of people, experts. So I've been blessed with people. I'm part of a group, the Cape Arboricultural sort of group. And there's a lot of knowledge. I've got a good framework. If I've got any questions, I can always bounce it off them, and we do so off each other. So there's certainly a lot to learn. There'll always be a lot to learn, and certainly even the guys who've been around for decades, they'll be the first to tell you there's still more to learn. It's an incredible field. It's something to be passionate about. There's certainly it's ongoing. It's an ongoing learning process.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about managing your business and your team. What do you look out for when you're looking for someone to add to the crew? What type of characteristics does someone need to have?
Sure. So my previous trade, as I explained earlier, and the very specific role of doing careful climbing, cutting, and rigging in trees, lended myself to, right from day one, employ super experienced guys, team. So even from day one, back in October 2017, I had employed a climber who already then had more than 10 years, he had about 12 years experience, hardened industry experience.
Wow.
So what I needed to do in order to bridge the gap from where I was starting out to pitching and working in a domain which required a high level of quality, safety, and work output, the only avenue I could, apart from my own expertise as well, because I also had to be trained up in climbing and cutting, and I've got qualifications for that. But in order for my team to work productively and effectively, I needed to employ super experienced people from the get-go. So from day to day with my current team, in terms of my core guys, you will see each man will have more than 10 years already himself. So if I have a team of, let's say, 6 or 7 guys, 3 or 4 of them will have like 10 years experience. It's a really collectively more than, plus my own experience, but just them, more than 30 years of tree cutting experience. So I think number one is making sure I've got the right personnel on the job. As opposed to, if I didn't do it that way, it would have been a very long, hard road to start from scratch with new guys, and then there's no guarantee of doing a job correctly anyway. But to speed up the process was to use super experienced people. I've had to pay them well because of it, but I was able to come in, instead of being a tree guy with a ladder, with no ropes, no real skill. I could come in from day one to current, obviously hundreds and hundreds of days of work, with proper experience, using the right equipment, and hence I could, from the early days, I could really be competitive with guys who've been in the game for decades. I could produce the same kind of work. Even though I was new to the game, I made sure I had the right people on the job.
Yeah. And obviously working with, highly experienced people is one thing, but the buck ultimately stops with you.
For sure.
How do you maintain like high standards? Do you have like systems or habits that you've put in place for that?
Absolutely. It really comes down to attention to detail, being dedicated, being conscientious, and building up an instinct of knowing to be at the right place at the right time, and being present. A lot of small businesses and obviously, I mean, we all have our bad days, but the goal is to be present, to be engaging, to be right there and helping problem solve and make decisions on site. And that's required my presence on site. And that over time has become probably one of my biggest selling points of Highworks Tree Services, is that Dave's there, he's on site, he's involved, he's engaged. And there are a myriad of things that can go wrong in terms of, the cutting, safety, and dynamics that actually shift. The goalposts shift very often. It's a very dynamic situation, and you need to be there to be part of that process. You can't detach yourself to the point where you're not involved, especially being. So I think even if there are advantages, big advantages, if you compare myself, small business with a small team compared to a big company with a lot of people, often what gets lost in the big companies is that they lose that on-site presence by the owner, where my level of business, and I don't intend to go that much bigger, is where the owner, me being the owner, has still got hands-on control and involvement on site. And often that's sometimes can be an advantage that I have over the bigger companies because of that, because sometimes the guys have got too big. The work team is left to their own devices and things can go wrong. Trees can fall on property gets damaged, they cut incorrectly. So that's a big advantage of my level of business. Small enough to have the type of control, but big enough to still do quality work, like the more established bigger guys would be doing. Yeah.
How did you get started in the early days? Obviously, probably now you get more word of mouth referrals. How did you start out in the beginning? Obviously, no one knew you. How did you get started?
Gee whiz. Okay, so going back to when I had coaching with Murray Kilgore, we sat there at the Mug and Bean, Long Beach Mall. And obviously Murray, being who he is, he could literally tackle any industry, any business, and there's certain fundamental things that you need to do to bridge that gap and be able to transition from having no traction in an industry to having traction. And the fundamental thing that Murray asked me to do was, right, I want you to write down the names of 6 people in the industry. Write their names down. And I could think of about 6 guys that I know who are in the trade, friends from my from friendship and friends of friends, that kind of thing. And then he said, right, Dave, I'm giving you 2 weeks. Obviously, I was fortunate because I had like a full 4-week block at home. We're going to have coffee again at Mug and Bean in 2 weeks' time. And I want you to go out, speak to all these people, have sit-downs with them, drink lots of coffee, and I want feedback. Boom. And it was phenomenal. That set me off radically. There was 1 or 2 guys, each guy helped in different ways. There were about 2 guys that I went to go see. And the one chap was incredibly helpful, a very good friend of mine, a childhood friend of mine, who helped him in business as well. I remember I had an A4 black book, and this guy sat down with me in his house in Bergfleet, and he said, right, here's what you need to do. You're going to aim to make this amount of money per day. You need a team of 4 guys to get going. You're going to do this, you're going to do that, and that's how it's going to work. And I filled up that whole A4 page. Wow. And I verbatim actually followed those things.
Sure.
And that model it's like there are certain fundamental things that he taught me that have stuck with me all the way through.
That's so generous of him to. I
Yeah,
mean, essentially, he's creating a competitor
yes,
for himself.
it was
Yeah.
amazing. So on top of that, his name's Brian Hansen of Offshore Tree Services. And this comes back to relationship and friendship. And I always marvel at it. When you reach out and you just knock on the doors and you start speaking to people who are friends of yours, and all of a sudden help comes like you won't believe. It's just, I think it's that old adage of, you put one step forward and you get like so many steps coming back towards you. Like, where did that come from?
Right.
I think just because of that, of stepping out in courage, and the things that come back to you, because there are actually a lot of generous people out there, to the point where Brian even gave me a lot of his customers and clients, because he wasn't focusing on the trees. He runs another business, electrical, and that kicked me off. And now I've still got customers now who, those original customers that he gave me, and also obviously the referred people and friends of those people.
Amazing.
And that's how it got kicked off. And then there's another chap in the Valley, Ron Clark, same story, but he helped me incredibly with the practical hands-on things. I mean, literally showed me the ropes. Hey, Ron, I need to quote. I don't know, how do I quote on these things? And he helped me, gave me feedback. And many, many practical ways he assisted me get off the ground. So yeah, people. So between Murray and Brian and Ron and a couple of other guys, I was able to break into the market. It was quite awesome.
Wow, amazing. Looking back over the last 8 years, what has been some of the tougher moments?
Sure. Well, if I'm really honest, one of my biggest school fee moments was cutting the wrong tree down. I don't do that now, and I've only done it once, but it was back in the early days in a house in Constantia, lovely Southern Cross Drive. The lady gave me the walk around the whole, and she wasn't speaking that clearly, and she pointed at a couple of trees. One was right next to the other one, and I spent a lot of time. I was very proud at cutting this palm tree down. The top of the head came off of the tree, swung over the pool. We had it all roped up. I was so, what wonderful rope work. The well-to-do lady came running out and said, "What the peep are you doing? Get off the property now." Ended up, she calmed down. I sourced a new palm tree. We turned a corner, and within a couple of days, we had planted a new tree, got the nutrients in, tied it up, and that new palm tree, and it still worked there for another couple of days. So yeah, that was hectic. And that was tough. Obviously, there was the COVID era.
Yeah.
Amazingly, that was tough to a point, but in retrospect, I actually had it. I was very fortunate working outside. As outdoor people, we were able to actually still work at people's homes because we were outdoors. So that actually wasn't that tough in comparison. And I ended up being able to sell firewood. I got a special permit, those essential services permit. When everyone else was locked indoors, I was able to go and sell firewood. That was incredible. I could keep my guys working. So that could have been really bad, but wasn't. And I would say more of a sustained tension, the sustained tension of cash flow. That's been the most difficult thing, where you can have zero money, and you've got bills to pay, you've got men to pay, and because you're getting started out the blocks, you don't really have the capacity to have, the resources to, even though you've got the work coming in, it's very gear and tool and vehicle and resource heavy, which takes capital outlay. And if you haven't got that, it's an ongoing grind to manage when things are breaking, chainsaws are breaking, and vehicles are breaking, and cylinder heads go, and all of a sudden you haven't got a vehicle anymore, and you're dead in the water. I've had to put a new engine in my bakkie. I would say losing the vehicle a couple of times, put a massive span in the works, put everything under pressure.
For sure.
Those are probably some of the toughest times.
Wow. Sure. Tell me about a situation that really pushed you to the limits in terms of a job where you were like, wow, okay, how are we going to do this?
Wow. Sure. Wow. Okay. So I think it was in my first year, I took on this job in Constantia, lovely property, and off Firgrove area. And at that stage, oh, well, all these tree guys are taking on these big jobs, and that's just what you do. And obviously, when you're hearing, big figures, and you're felling a tree and you're getting like 50, 60,000 rand, it seems like hey, you're doing well, So we're talking about a gum tree that's probably the highest branch is probably like 40 meters.
Wow.
With a girth of I don't know, I don't want to exaggerate, but maybe 3 meter girth.
Oh my word.
And the job was to fell the tree with buildings around it and remove the stump. And being naive, being new to the game, I was only focused on what was happening up there. Climbers in the trees, getting everything to ground. Happy, got it all done. What do I do once all the stuff's on the ground? That's all got to be removed. And you've got no inkling of what it takes to transport, cut up a massive, wet, heavy gum tree, get everything off site. How do you do that? I was able to get it down. I was able to, do all the very risky work of getting it down, of the actual felling. But then came the difficult task of having to actually get everything off site and remove the stump. Massive. There was one guy, the actual stump.
What do you do? Like get an excavator? How do you get a massive stump like that out?
Yeah, so we do a lot of stump removals by hand, but we had to, get another guy in. Fortunately, a guy with a stump grinder, and he had to do it with the stump grinder. I know you showed me a picture of one of these guys, probably about, sort of 5'6", 5'7" guy with his legs straight out and his arms straight. He could lie straight across the stump. Nice. And if you haven't got the right equipment, you are dead. But I didn't know any of the stuff. I remember the one day thinking to myself, I need a truck and a crane. And I was gallivanting around at the four-way stop area near Capri area. And I saw this guy, Calvin Hoodemaker, with a truck and a crane. And I actually literally pulled him over. I waved him down. I said, can you help me? Can you help me? I need help. And he was a wonderful dude. He came, he brought his truck, he gave me good rates. He even put weight on the tree when you need to pull it over to help us pull it over away from the house. It was absolutely incredible. But you're talking each section of the stump is about 1.5 tons that you're cutting. That's got to be removed, taken somewhere. You actually have to pay at the dumps to dispose of that stuff. 400 rand a ton. I didn't know any of this stuff. So all of a sudden that 50, 60 grand comes to like zip. You're like worrying, am I actually going to make a cent on this job? So those are the challenges. And then, I spoke to Francois Krige at the time, and Justin, the guy who helped with the stump. Now, these are like the main dudes in Cape Town. Francois Krige looked at the trees. He called it a monster. And he was like, okay, good luck, eh? And Justin from Constantia Environmental Services said, no, I don't do trees like this, and maybe like one a year or something. No, I want to go in and out. This is heavy PT. And that was me my first year of tree work. And so I learned big school fees on that, what to take on, what not to take on. And a friend of mine who's in business said, this is one of the most key things. Sometimes the most important thing to know is when to say, no, I'm not going to do that. That's fundamental rule. So you kind of need to know what your limit, what your capacity is, what you should be doing and what you should not be doing. I think that's an instinct that only, unfortunately, comes with some school fees, but vitally important. You need to know exactly where you fit and what you shouldn't be doing. And the hardest part is when you're chasing work is you pretty much want to say yes to everything. But you need to know, no, that I can't do that. That's going to be too hectic. I don't have the capacity for that. You've got to be able to know the difference.
Being honest with yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And knowing, you haven't got the equipment, you haven't got the resources, you haven't got the capacity for that. Don't do it. That's probably one of the most fundamental things that I learned. Yeah.
Yeah, nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah.
Amazing. If someone listening wants to start their own service-based business, but they might feel unsure, what would you say to them?
Yeah. I think, well, in my case, I think the key term I would use is, what is your comfort zone? And I think you need to be prepared you are going to go out of your comfort zone, guaranteed. And
Sure.
you are going into new territory. And an analogy that, once again, Murray said, picture a trapeze artist. You look at those circus acts and you see they're doing the trapeze. They're holding in one hand, the one acrobat is coming across, swinging across, and actually has to let go of that and go for the next one. So there's a period of actually committing to make the jump and having to let go. There will be that letting go, and you're in thin air. There's nothing holding, but you've got to now reach in confidence for the next handle, for the next set of ropes. And it's that transition of at some point you're going to have to let go of what you know, and you have to reach for something that you don't know. And there will be fear. And you are going into a new place and you are completely leaving your comfort zone. I think that is the biggest challenge. So for me personally, it sounds very adventurous, working oil rigs, working abroad, but for any offshore expat rope access guy or any industry work or any type of work, working offshore, will say he's more comfortable flying thousands of kilometers away than actually coming to Cape Town or coming home and trying to break new ground. And the reason is because he hasn't developed those skills and knowledge he doesn't know what to do or how to do it. He hasn't got the network. And that is the gap that needs to be bridged. So I would say spend time, do the research, talk to people who are doing it. Spend as much time as you need to actually visualize and find out what's the word on the street, what's current. Who do you know? Who are the people closest to you in relationship that are already doing where you want to go? Hang with them, learn from them, and that slowly but surely your confidence will grow. And as you build that knowledge base, you will grow in confidence. It's not going to be easy when you make that jump, but at least you will have an idea. You've got something to aim for and an element of confidence to get you started in the game. So it's that confidence that you're after, and you're only going to get that by stepping out, talking to people in the game, and you'll kind of know. There'll be like an intuitive knowledge inside when you're starting to feel more ready to make that jump. So picture that acrobat going from one to the other, build up that confidence, and when you do make the jump, make it a confident leap into the unknown. But you've been blessed, you now know where to reach for. You need to have something to reach for and then make that grab. It's going to take all of you. It's going to take everything you've got. There's going to be a lot of fear, but it's within that courage of making that jump that's where the magic happens. And that's just an ongoing cycle as a self-employed person. Every day, every week can be like that. It's an adventure. You can be on zero right now. You get a phone call, all of a sudden you're sorted for the next 2 weeks of work. And we know that as much as, yes, things are stressful, things are bad, it can also turn. So there's an element of risk. There is an element of adventure, but you also know how quickly things can change for the positive as well as sometimes for the negative. But you develop over time a confidence just by doing it, by actually doing it.
Amazing. I love that illustration of an acrobat. Obviously, an acrobat also received coaching and training, and they've got the net there as well initially. But it still takes that courage of letting go. Love it. Thank you so much. Pleasure. It's been so wonderful chatting with you, Dave. It's been so insightful. I've learned lots about an area I know nothing about. So it's been really, really interesting.
Awesome.
Where can people learn about Highworks or connect with you?
Well, depending on where you are, you're welcome to look on Facebook. That would be the easiest. You'll see my Facebook page, Highworks Tree Services. You'll see lots of videos, lots of footage. You'll see lots of reviews. Also Google. I've got a Google page, which funny enough, a lot of people don't use, and it's actually pretty much takes half an hour to get set up. My friend from church, David Marcus, said, hey, he gave me some advice.
Is that a Google business listing?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a wonderful place where, you're welcome to see reviews. People recommend me. Both of those. Highworks on Facebook and my Google page as well. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. All the best with Highworks.
Thank you so much, Sam. It's been awesome.
If you've enjoyed listening to Born to Build, please subscribe to the podcast and click the notification bell to get notified when the next episode is out.